Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I think we should get started, and hopefully others will join us during the course of the introductions. I'd like to welcome everyone on behalf of the Humanities Research and Development Cycle, and also the West African Transitional Justice Center, to this special roundtable in which we are trying to, of course, introduce a book to us, which has to do with the things from Nigeria's past elections in 2019, and also to hold discussions. I relate this to the upcoming elections, which is just in 2 days. So it's a pleasure to have you join us. This is like an academic endeavor. The two organizations, are interested in helping, to bridge the gap between scholarship and also influencing policy within the scholarship space in Nigeria. Without much ado, I would try to introduce the moderator before he takes over the platform. So just a brief introduction to our schedule. What we intend to do is to have some of the panelists who try to with us engage us in specific aspects of the work. Then they have a slight engagement with the moderator, who himself is an expert, as I'll be introducing him very soon, in the realm of electoral politics as far as Nigeria is concerned. And then we'll open the floor for us to engage. I'll start off by introducing the moderator, who is a dear friend. Actually, I think we go some way back, and fortunately, I was fortunate enough to resume work at an organization on the same day with him. And ever since then, we've been very passionate about work within Nigeria, and especially as regards to social justice and politics. So Mr. Omori Austin Aigbe supports democracy and governance programs. His interest includes international politics, development, electoral integrity, countering misinformation and disinformation in elections, and leadership and globalization. He's worked as a program manager at the International Republican Institute, the American nonprofit organization committed for advancing democracy worldwide, as well as freedom. He has a master's degree from the New York University, and also specializes in public and nonprofit management and policy. He's a member of the International Public Service Association, a fellow of the Ford Foundation International Fellowships Program, and an alumni of the African Leadership Forum in Ottawa. He is also an alumni of the Global Social Change Leadership Institute in New York. So, ladies and gentlemen, you agree with me that we have a very competent hand to anchor the program. And without further ado, I would like to hand over the platform to Mr. Austin Aigbe to lead us through the discussions. Mr. Austin, please.
Thank you very much, Doc. Are they up? Hello?
Doc, yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you, but you can put up your video if it's not clear enough, yeah.
Okay, well, I'm trying to multitask. So I'm trying to use the computer and the phone. Okay, so thanks, Dr. Philip. In fact, we've come a long way. I remember, as you already introduced, or you already talked about, we had resumed a particular office on the same day, and since then, after the sojourn at that office, we continue to have this relationship, and I think the interest is around the same kind of pursuit, whether in academics or in the kind of social justice work that we do. So without wasting much time, we already had wasted 10 minutes of our time, precious time, and I'd like to apologize to everyone who has joined us already. I'll try to quickly introduce our panelists for this session. This engagement is so unique, particularly because today is the 23rd of February, and the presidential election or the national election will hold in less than 2 days. So we just have Friday in between. in less than 2 days, Nigerians will go to poll. And right now, the global community is focused on Nigeria. As everyone already know, Nigeria will yet survive these elections. We've always survived. But there may be lessons that we will learn from previous engagement. And that's why these chapters and this book that is Dr. Philip just talked about becomes very important. I'd like to introduce first, not in any particular order though, but the first panelist is Oluwarinde DJ Egbe. He holds a PhD in international relations with bias in geopolitics and indigenous people. He's a member of several associations, such as the International Public Service Association, NPSA, the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs, NIIA, etc. He teaches political science at the Niger Delta State University, Wilberforce Island, Bayelsa State. Welcome, sir. Welcome, Doc. If you are around, you can just wave your hands. I believe we are seeing everybody. You can just wave your hands. We'll see you. Okay. Am I the one with the challenge? I'm trying to see everybody. Okay.
Yeah, it's waved his hand already. You can continue.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Doc. Okay. All right. So I also have another very eloquent and vibrant panelist is Patrick Okpeleke. Sorry if I do apologize sincerely in case I haven't pronounced that correctly. He holds a BA and an MA in history from the University of Uyo, Nigeria, and is currently a doctorate student in the African history at the same university. His doctoral research explores the social history of medicine and colonial public health during the 20th century. Doc, if you are around, please also wave your hands. All right, thank you. Thank you very much. And the third, which is a very senior fellow, is Dr. Foreign Agegbe. He's a lecturer with the Department of Political Science, Benue State University, Makurdi in Nigeria, where he teaches, he conducts research. He also teaches and supervise and grade both undergraduate and students. His specialty is in peace and conflict studies and international relations. Equally, it served in the Department in other several capacities, including Departmental Examination Officer for the Public Administration degree programs and coordinate part-time programs in the department. While interfacing with staff and students, presently she coordinates the postgraduate program in the department and serves at the faculty and university in various capacities as a member of select committees. He holds a doctoral degree in political science with research interests in areas of conflict and sustainable peace, democratic governance and elections, and most recently, climate change, displacement, and migration. Three powerful panelists that we're going to be having this conversation. I'm trying to pull up my agenda, but Philip, if you can quickly, if you are there, if you can quickly pull up, because I know that the agenda, I'm supposed to go straight with a first, I think Dr. Ferrer was supposed to start, right?
Dr. Olawari Egbe will start, to give it.
Okay, all right, thank you. Yes, thank you. If you could if you could, I'm only able to access the WhatsApp. I don't know what's happening to my Gmail.
You have it in a bit. Don't worry, just go with Dr. Olawari. You have it in a bit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Yes, Dr. Egbe, please. As we have already had a back-end conversation, would you like to start this conversation? Thank you very much, sir. Dr. Egbe.
Dr. Egbe needs to unmute.
Yes, you are muted, Dr. Egbe. You are muted, You are still muted. Maybe let me try and see if I can help you from here. Okay.
Can you do that? Are you able to do that?
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yes, we
perfect,
can.
Dr. Egbe.
Yeah.
Okay, as I said earlier, my name is Olawari Igbe from Niger Delta University, Department of Political Science, Bayelsa State. The book, the book, Nigeria's 2019 Democratic Experience, is on a detailed volume by Professor Godi, Uchendu, and Olawari Igbe. Published by a German publishing firm, De Gruyter, in 2022, the volume has an introduction and 11 chapters. The volume in its entirety is the desire to have a near perfect free elections in Nigeria. And thus far, Professor Godi's introduction does ask this question, or rather a puzzle. In the puzzle, she asks, how can national elections in Nigeria be made right? This is because from independence up to date, the elections have been having several challenges. So this coming election, will it be near perfect, free? Will it be free of issues and challenges that the country had in the previous elections? That was our basic concern in the introduction. Constrained by time, this introduction could not go through, by way of summaries, all the chapters, but a brief survey of the chapters ponder on issues like the lack of democratic consolidation in Nigeria, a chapter contributed by Professor Agara of Igbenedion University. Another issue that was mostly pronounced in the work is chapter 2 and 3 on the effects of external influence on Nigeria's election, how the Western world, major countries of the global north, countries like the US, Britain, Paris, and other countries, France and other countries have impacted on Nigeria's national election. Those two chapters were written by Egbe. Another issue area that was a major research interest to contributors is the challenge of the conduct of elections on issues like ethnicity, religion, language, ugly heads as they are, that intruded into Nigeria's electoral process. And these ugly heads are resulted in thuggery, violence, and sometimes unholy or unbiased flows of the electoral empire. These chapters were contributed by scholars like Orakwe, Okpaleke, Lenshi, and on the issue of electoral empire, and in the issue of electoral empire, Isua and Agaibe, scholars from Benue State University, took their time to elaborate on the electoral empire and how biased sometimes the electoral empire, INEC, as a president, has conducted elections in Nigeria. And then another chapter of interest, two chapters, of course, is on insecurity in our national elections. Those two chapters were written by Obina and Paki. Above all, the contributors insist that democracy in Nigeria remains a fledgling one because it suffers from challenges like political violence, abuse of the rule of law, a weakened and compromised judiciary and legislature, that's the National Assembly, and worst of all, the militarization of the polity that often results or impact adversely on the opposition parties. It's a major challenge. So the concern has been that the prevalence or the preponderance of the foregoings simply imply that the nation, Nigeria, in its national elections, have not learned lessons, because the issues that have bedeviled previous elections keep repeating themselves. For example, we mentioned how issues of ethnicity and religion and language intrude ugly into our national elections. And for that, there is a do or die approach to see how elections could be won by all means. So there is thuggery, there is this, there is that. Again, monetary politics is not excluded, all because there is this element of ethnicity, religion, and language. He wants my brother to be in power. He wants my sister to be in power. So if I've not learned from the previous mistakes in Nigeria's democratic experience from independence to date, it means that we need to have a new start, or to have a routine on how we can conduct our elections, so that the mistakes of the previous years, that sometimes these mistakes snowball into violence, post-election violence, that cost the nation needless bloodshed and all the rest. And so the book is of interest to Nigerians, as being presented by the editors, is that we should learn from these mistakes that were identified in the 2019 general election, so that they will not repeat themselves in the next election, 2023 election, that is only about 2 days away. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Ebe. Thanks for that very, in fact, you raised more questions than, I think the question raised are still germane, because since 2019, we still continue to talk about, are we going to have credible elections? And in this election 2023, we continue to talk about external influence. Russia, though Russia is in war with Ukraine, but people still believe that Russia mill and Russia troop farms are still having effect in our elections. And insecurity continues to be a major challenge across the length and breadth. In fact, 240 polling units, elections will not hold in 240 polling units, largely because of insecurity. So, well, before we do that, before we interrogate further, let me bring in our second panelist, so that we will have all of the panel sessions together. Please, may I welcome quickly, let me take Prof. Dr. Farren, please, if you are there. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes.
Good day. Okay. So in this book that has been elaborately introduced by Dr. Egbe, Dr. Tsua and I, Dr. Tsua and Dr. Agaigbe have a chapter on INEC, the electoral process, and the conduct of the 2019 elections. Now, in doing this, we try to look at the processes, the step-by-step processes that are involved in the conduct of elections. You will agree with me that elections do not just begin and end with the voting process. There are a whole lot of steps involved in the conduct of, or in administration and conduct of elections. So in this chapter, we try to look at about 7 of those steps as highlighted by Eckhilt and Reynolds in their book. Now, these steps include the legal framework for EMB's structure, election management, constituency and polling.
You'll be back.
Constituency and polling district demarcation. Can I go on? There's so much interference.
Yes, please. I'm trying to mute people. Please mute your mics if your mics are on. Sorry, Dr. Farren, for that distraction. You can go on, please.
Okay, so yeah, I was mentioning the steps that we looked at in this chapter involved in administration of elections. We looked at the legal framework of the EMBs, election management, constituency and polling district demarcation, voter education, voter registration, access to and design of the ballot nomination and registration of parties and candidates, and then of course, the campaign regulation. Now, these are the steps that are highlighted in this chapter as were cited from the works of Erkils and Reynolds. Now, in this chapter, however, our focus mainly is on three of these steps, three of these aspects, which include the legal framework of EMBs, and then we have the voter registration, and then campaign regulation. Now, I would, because of press of time, I wouldn't want to go into the details of all of this, but in this chapter, when you get a copy of this book, you will look at what we have discussed under the legal framework for administration of elections, then voter registration and permanent voters card collection, the experience we had in the 2019 general elections, then the issue of campaign regulation. You will agree with me that campaigns were generally really regulated in the 2019 general elections, you know, because there was a tendency towards so much of hate speech. And as we headed for the 2019 general elections, there was a lot of measures that were put in place to put that in check. But very importantly, the issues that we wanted to bring out we tried to bring out in this chapter are the issues of operation and logistics, which played a very important role in the 2019 general election. Now, you will recall that the 2019 general elections, which were scheduled to take place to begin on the 16th of February, 2019, were, for the reasons of logistics, postponed by a week. Now, I also like to say that from the responses we got and from our observation in the process of collecting data for this chapter, we came to realize that quite a number of people looked forward to the 2019 general elections with great aspiration, with great expectations, following the outcome of the 2015 general elections. You know, the 2015 general elections were very significant in the history of Nigeria. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the 2015 general elections were the elections that for the first time we had electronic accreditation process in Nigeria. The accreditation process in the 2015 general elections were electronic. And so I think that to a very large extent, this process of electronic accreditation added so much credibility to the 2015 general election. And so people, having seen the outcome of the 2015 general elections, they looked forward to the 2019 general elections with great expectations that if we had this in 2015, then 2019 should be a build-up from what we had in 2015. And so what we had was that postponement that, you know, I would say marred that expectation, because following that postponement, which was just 6 hours to the beginning of voting, so many hopes were dashed. I recall also that so many people, quite a number of Nigerians or electorate, had to travel from their locations to other parts of the country, probably their hometown, just to be part of these elections. And then few hours to the commencement of voting, and then elections were postponed. I dare to say that the 2019 elections were one election that had so much apathy, you know, because people's hopes, the hopes of the electorates were dashed, you know, and having to get people to come back, you know, with that enthusiasm to be part of the 2019 general elections was a bit difficult. And you know, people lost hope in the credibility of that election because of these issues of logistics. You know, election materials, there were about 12 states that at a few hours to beginning of voting, and then there were no election materials on ground, and all of that. So it was our hope that the INEC, which is the electoral umpire in Nigeria, will look at some of these challenges and take redress, see how they would, you know, try to address these issues of logistics to ensure that in the 2023 general elections, all of this would be addressed. Election materials would get to their locations as at when due. And you will agree with me also that the 2023 general elections particularly has pulled people out of their comfort zones. A good number of Nigerians have gone out to register, you know, so as to be able to vote. I think that in the history of Nigeria's democracy since 1999, this 2023 general elections is one that I saw people in their numbers go out to register and then have gone out in their numbers also to get their PVCs. So there is aspiration, there are expectations that 2023 general elections will be better in terms of INEC taking care of the logistics and ensuring that materials get to their location in good time so that the electorates can exercise their franchise. And lastly, before I go, is the issue of manpower, recruitment and deployment. The recruitment, training, and deployment of ad hoc staff by INEC in the 2019 general election was greatly flawed. And it is our recommendation in this chapter that the 2023 general elections will be different because INEC will take proactive steps to engage, train, and then deploy this ad hoc staff to their various polling units in record time to you know, take charge of the electoral and the elections on the elections and election day. Now, in the 2019 general elections, you had coppers and other ad hoc staff who had their trainings just 2 days to the election. So they hadn't even mastered the skill of probably handling the smart card readers and all of that. So getting to the field, not being properly trained, most of them were not able to handle the challenges, the technical challenges that they encountered on the field. So it is our hope and our expectations that INEC has taken care of these issues, and come the elections in another less than 2 days, these challenges would have been properly dealt with. Thank you.
Dr. Modri, you have to unmute yourself.
Oh, thank you. Oh, sorry. I didn't know that the host had shot all of us at some point. So I was saying, thank you very much, Doc. You raised some fundamental issues which have which went into amendment of the Electoral Act 2022. Those issues were very strong, and there are proposals. I'd like to come back to you to ask I don't know if you'll be following up with what is happening now with the way you analyze INEC, the 7 steps that you mentioned, and your focus of what you eventually zero in on. And it's fantastic. I'll be coming back to you to ask whether or not, whether your recommendation or in which area your recommendation had eventually found its way into INEC processes, particularly looking at the campaigns, Because right now we still have hate speeches, we have fake news, which has become the bane in our electoral system, and of course the deployment plan you just talked about. Thanks again. Thanks for the analysis, and I appreciate it. So I'm coming back to the third panelist, Dr. Patrick. I believe you hear me. Yes, it's your turn. 10 minutes. If you can unmute and go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Stein, for the opportunity. So basically, I also want to thank Dr. Egbe and the immediate past speaker for the introduction and analyzing one of the chapters on INEC. Basically, we contributed a chapter, myself and my colleague, that looks at the issues of ethnic politics from the Lagos dimension. And that chapter is titled Murdering Their Consciences, Right to Vote, and Ethnopolitical Conflict in Lagos during the 2019 general election. What we try to do is we actually try to provide insight into reasons why there are so much attacks, counterattacks, threats, and disturbances in Lagos whenever there was going to be an election. And in the case of 2019, we saw clips as well as news making the rounds on how certain ethnic groups, particularly the Igbo in this regard, we attacked at various areas like Ajegule, Apapa, Amodofi, and the rest of them. Of course, what we did was we actually tried to situate the work within the context of existing literature, which is, of course, the likes of Okudiban Noli, just to be able to trace in a historical sense the place of ethnicity in our election, both from the First Republic down to the Fourth. So we realized that ethnic politics itself is not a new phenomenon as far as Nigerian political landscape is concerned. In fact, it is almost as old as the nation itself or the country itself. And of course, it took root in the 1941 conflict between some of the personalities in the Nigerian youth movement. And then we actually tried to trace it up until the demise of the First Republic. Of course, it was very, very catastrophic because it left a whole lot of dent on our political landscape. But then we were very much confined because we wanted to understand how it is that a certain group of persons could actually be denied the right to cast their vote according to their conscience, according to their ideology, and according to what they think would be best for them. So we began to look at some of the international conventions to which Nigeria is actually a signatory to. And we realized that Nigeria is also a signatory to, the right to vote. And we identified this as a legal lacuna in the context that even when Nigeria has actually appended a signature to this, the country have not been able to domesticate such international convention to reflect our present reality, especially during times of election. And this, of course, have created a huge gap in which both politicians and their foot soldiers would always use in terms of election season. And you will want to agree with me that in most cases, we've hardly seen where those who perpetrated violence and all form of, conflict, either before, during, and after elections, we've not seen most of them being, prosecuted because the law itself is not very effective. Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello.
Yes, please continue. Continue, please. We can hear you, please.
Yeah, Doc, continue. We're with you.
Okay, yeah, that was I have to shut the video because the network has been very bad lately.
Okay.
So what we did under that subheading was to re-examine why most of this conflict, most of these attacks on certain ethnic group in certain areas that are not their domestic homes had continued to thrive. And in this context, we made a case that because Nigeria has failed to domesticate some of the international conventions, some of the international instruments to which she is a signatory to, that is why this whole thing about violence and attack on one group or the other have persisted without most of these people who perpetrate this violence being brought to book. Then we also try to look specifically at how some individuals have in some way impacted on elections. We specifically look at the Lagoon threat that was made in 2016 by the very respectable Oba of Lagos, and how it played out both during the 2016 and also served as a building block for the 2019 election. Of course, when traditional rulers who are more or less supposed to provide, some form of moral support and guidance for their subjects would actually go out to make certain utterances that are not very much in good light. You want to believe that people will, key in on that as a kind of excuse to, carry out all forms of violence. And that was exactly what played out in Lagos State, where majority of the people were attacked in Alaba and the rest of the places. And then we also try to understand how this whole idea of or narrative of Igbos contributed to the build-up of Lagos, or Igbos have been a very major contributor to the development of Lagos. We try to understand what is the relevance, what is the connection between the Igbo people contributing to the development of Lagos and them having a right to cast their vote according to whom they think would help project or promote their interests. The truth remains that based on the field work we did and the interviews we did, it came out on two fronts. One is Lagos has been developing before the Igbo started to come in there. The other is, even though it has been developed, Igbo people are more or less the majority of those in business. And as far as they pay taxes and meet up all civic obligations that are expected of them, they should be allowed to carry out their constitutional rights by casting votes according to what they feel will be best for them. And we should also remember that in very recent time, Lagos State stands out as one of the only states in Nigeria where we have a large number of candidates who are not originally from that place, Lagos State. When you read the work of Professor AHRDC titled Which Lagos, Whose History, you will see where he made the argument that, of course, the fact that Lagos, in a loose term, is called a no man's land does not mean it's not enough reason to think the place does not belong to a particular set of people. So the chapter actually was trying to just emphasize on the fact that it appears that the reason why Oba of Lagos made that comment and the reason why other top politicians in that state actually try to ensure that they coerce or probably they talk to the Igbo people who they believe has a very large number was because they see that, some House of Rep members, some state house members are actually of the Igbo region. Like we cited in the book, we saw where about 4, 5, or 6 persons who are not Lagosians, based on ancestry or probably by birth, but they are from Imo State and other states in Southeast or even in Edo State. But today they represent the people of Lagos in different, platforms. So there's this kind of feelings that if these people are not quickly caught, if they are not quickly checkmated, if they are not, checkmated, there's a likelihood that they might likely overrun the system. But then we concluded that even though ethnic politics is not really a new thing, it has continued to take new dimensions as every election comes up. In the sense that unjust violence, we've also had different forms where we can actually say that because of fear of allowing a particular group of people to interfere with our political space, there is need for us to contain them by all means. So basically, the chapter is just all about ethnic politics, and it's so much in tandem with the chapter that talks about ethnic politics also in Taraba State. Generally, the book is one that really captures the realities of 2019 elections. And in as much as we can see from what has been happening very recently, I don't think we can actually say for sure that our politicians, our leaders have really learned lessons from the previous time, because just very recently, the Labour Party candidate actually wanted to visit Lagos State and wrote to the palace requesting to meet with the traditional ruler, Oba of Lagos, but he was told that the Oba will not be available. Of course, this time around, there was no threat, but there was a subtle way to just avoid certain candidates whom the Oba feel will not protect or project the interests of Lagos State. So generally, Nigeria's 2019 democratic experience, edited by Professor Egbodu Chendu and Dr. G.G. Olawari Egbe, is a masterpiece in the sense that it captures basically election in 2019 in many forms in the area of electoral processes, electoral violence, ethnic politics, and any other way we could actually imagine elections in Nigeria. And I want to believe that we could actually have a series of this, probably after the 2023 elections, to consolidate the knowledge that has been captured and produced in this particular piece. So I think I'll have to stop here. I don't take much of our time.
Thank you
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very much.
Wow. This is, I mean, it's such an awesome webinar already. You know, all the conversation brings us back to where we are, that we are in an election year. In fact, we are already in elections. And I would like to come back to you to find out your thought about whether it was, I don't know if it's disinformation anyway, but a voice note surfaced recently on social media, which also correlates some form of ethnic bias, but this time not from the Oba, but from another kind of community leader in a Tionsa local government area. And the PDP in that state has responded officially with a press statement trying to call attention to that commentary. All right, I'll come back. Now, let me come to Dr. Egbe. I'd like to follow up because you played a huge role in this whole architecture. Did you see in 2019, to what degree did misinformation or malinformation shape voters' perception in that election? And to what degree do you think that the INEC, of course, maybe I'll come to Dr. Farin for INEC, but to what degree did you see misinformation play a role in 2019? And how do you think we can avoid and nip in the bud misinformation, disinformation, which is generally referred to as fake news? Dr. Egbe, please. Yes, Dr. Egbe, can you hear me? Are you still with us?
You are muted, Dr. Egbe. You are muted.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, loudly now.
Yes, I think I will ask that I'll be allowed to pass on that question, because really I have not taken my time to do a research on this information with regards to elections, please, in Nigeria.
Okay. Let me stay with the earlier your commentary. Let's stay with the influence of foreign external influence.
Yes.
What would you think would be the influence of countries like Russia, China, and the US, particularly the US, and including our big brother, the United Kingdom? Well, because we're beginning to also see the invisible hand of this external influence in this upcoming election. What do they want, or what do you think is their interest? Maybe in 2019, and of course, maybe if you've already seen that in 2023 elections.
Yes. With respect to 2023 general elections, I think the global north, particularly the US and Britain, have not shown particular interest in this forthcoming election, just 2 days away. In 2015 and 2019, the handwritings of these global powers on those elections were very profound. In the 2015 general elections, the interest of US and Britain was very clear. Of course, Nigerians wanted a change in party as a ruling party. Nigerians wanted a change, and the PDP was not in the love books of most Nigerians. So the APC was the darling of majority of Nigerians. And of course, the US in particular and the Britain wanted a change of leadership. And so PDP was not in the good books, or was not in the good books of most Western countries. and the APC was the darling party of the West. And so efforts were made massively to see that a change of government was in place in Nigeria, and it was of little surprise when the new government under General Buhari at that time, now President Buhari, came into power. We expect that in the 2019, meanwhile, while in the 2015 general elections, the US and the Western powers favored the APC. APC welcomed the development, while the PDP cried foul. Mostly the government of Dr. Jonathan was very much unpleasant with the antecedents of with the activities of the US and Britain in particular. In 2019 general elections in particular, the hands of the clock turn around to favor the PDP, and the APC this time around cry foul that the government of Britain and US was favoring the candidature of Atiku as of the 2019 general elections. And so it was a chapter. It was one of the chapters in the book where I wrote and I titled ruling on opposition parties' reactions to external influence in 2019 presidential election, which was basically a satire. Because why I say a satire is that while in the 2015 general elections, the PDP cried foul towards the external interest shown by countries like the US under Obama and then that of David Cameron. In the 2019 elections, the APC cried foul of the interest shown by Western countries like the US in that election. So generally, the chapter was being the satire. I argue that look, the institution of the political institution, the political party in Nigeria is not strong. It's still fledgling. It's still fragile. Because from the research of that paper, it is realized that external influence in its entirety is not negative. It has positive sides. Of course, there are negative sides. But then, political parties in Nigeria have not trying to see once the external influence tend to show a kind of interest towards a particular party, they cry foul. Meanwhile, the original intentions may not be to discredit a particular political party at the expense of the other one. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Doc. Okay, I hear you talk about some influence that was also misinformation. Many people in 2015 elections thought that President Obama did a video. Please, can you mute your microphone, please? Thank you. There was a video that trended in 2015 ahead of the election where President Obama had talked about the Nigerian election. In fact, the video came out on the eve of the election, and the message sounded like the US and particularly former President Obama was anti-Goodluck Jonathan. Evidence suggests that that video was fake, and there was nothing like that. That it was misinformation to sway people's thought and perception. In 2019, there was a picture of Donald Trump holding the banner of Atiku. In fact, the perception then was that Donald Trump was articulated. It was also false. It was a Photoshop. Why that of Barack Obama was largely what is called deepfake. Deepfake. Collection of pieces of Obama's voices and aligning them and syncing it. And even Goodluck Jonathan referred to that video as an offense to the Nigerian state. It is good maybe as we go into 2023 elections, that added to what Dr. Patrick said earlier, in the new book, let's interrogate the place of misinformation and disinformation in shaping opinion. I'll leave it there. I'll come to Dr. Farron, please. You talked about the umpire. The umpire right now has made some improvement. I don't know whether to call it tremendous improvement. Following the work you did about particularly campaign finance, like I initially stated, would you say that the INEC of 2015, INEC of 2019, and INEC of today, if there are differences in terms of efficiency, effectiveness, and being unbiased? Dr. Farian, please.
Okay, thank you very much for your question. Now, to say that there is a difference between the INEC of 2015, 2019, and 2023 will be, to state it, to be too hasty to say, you know, but I know that following the amendment of the Electoral Act, there are a couple of changes here and there that have been made. I know that in the Electoral Act, we have one of the changes there is financial independence of the INEC, which I think, which I think that to a large extent, all things being equal, if INEC is to be independent, financially independent, as indicated in the amended Electoral Act, to some extent, it should be also autonomous, okay, and not so much dependent on the government, the Nigerian government, you know. Well, that is in an ideal situation. I also know that part of the changes in the Electoral Act is the extension of the time frame for publication of election notices, extension of time frame for campaigns, and all of that. There are a few changes here and there in the Electoral Act. And I think that these changes have been made to the effect that the INEC becomes more effective and more efficient. But you know that our problem in Nigeria is not the absence of good
laws.
Not the absence of laws or good policies and programs. It is the implementation and the enforcement.
Yes.
So I would say that if these amendments are followed through like they have been listed in the Electoral Act, then we should have a better INEC in the 2023 general elections, because I think that this is the effect to which these amendments have been made.
Okay,
I don't know if I've responded to your question.
Yes, because we have to focus on INEC, it may take us 3 days to interrogate or more. Yes, thanks. I mean, I actually like the way you zero in on the Electoral Act, because INEC cannot act without the power given by law. So I'll come to Dr. Patrick, please. Because of time, I'm trying to work on if you could speak briefly, just asking the question about ethnicity, because that's your focus. And did you find any other ethnic group that was attacked or that were attacked in the 2019 election beyond the Igbos in Lagos, beyond the Oba of Lagos? Did you find any other? Or ahead of this election, have you noticed any kind of ethnicity-related violence? If you could speak to that in a minute or two, it would be fantastic. Dr. Patrick, please. And just so
thank you.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I wanted to say that for participants, if you have urgent question, please drop it on the chat box. We'll continue to read them as we see them. But as soon as Dr. Patrick is over, we'll turn it to the participant. Please. Okay, Doctor, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. Basically, like we said, ethnic politics is as old as the country itself, and many other ethnic groups have at one point or the other been attacked. In fact, specifically in 2019 election, of course, which our chapter is, focused on, beside the Igbo people, some other ethnic groups were also attacked. For instance, people from Edo State, they were also attacked, and they were, basically non-Yoruba speaking group at some point were also attacked in those periods. Secondly, you asked the question of it before the 2019 elections, we also other attacks. Yeah. Now, the reason why we actually focus on the Igbo people for two major reasons. One, in terms of the demography in population, you would want to agree with me, even though there are no, official statistics to show for right now, that the Igbo people have a reasonable amount of population in Lagos State. And secondly, we're interested in understanding why specifically the Oba of Lagos would only direct that threat to the Igbo people after inviting Igbo leaders to his palace. These are basically some of the reasons, not any other ethnic group, but Igbo leaders in Lagos. Of course, politicians themselves, they have their own foot soldiers that carry out, groundworks for them, that penetrate the nooks and crannies of the area to know where is the stronghold and where is not the stronghold for them. So such a reaction could have actually been because of the information they have gathered across Lagos State. To say, okay, Alaba International, we have this number of people there. I think over the course of years, I've been privileged to experience elections in different parts of the country. In the north, I was born and brought up in Lagos specifically, and right now I'm in Akwa Ibom State. So I know what I'm saying.
Okay.
Most times you want to understand, all right, have I exhausted my time?
No, if you can
Can
just
you hear me?
conclude.
Okay, good. So
if you can summarize, yes.
The threat to the Igbo people, the threat against the Igbo people actually was one of the major reasons why we decided to delve into that research, to understand how the Igbo people also was a threat.
Okay, thank you. If not for want of time, I would have actually asked the next question, particularly questions around whether you think the historical dispute between the Southwest and the Southeast, you know what I mean when I say historical dispute, the time of the war and all of that. I would have loved to ask if that would have been, if there was a correlation between then and now, but maybe because of back and forth question, you may have opportunity to speak to that historical conversation that it continues to date. I'd like to turn into the participants. You've had fantastic academics presenting evidence-based data from the 2019 general election, so strong that if we had this piece discussed about a year or two ago, would have been more equipped with enough information, maybe beyond what we did during the course of the Electoral Act amendment, the reenactment and bill. I mean, the act that eventually was signed by President Buhari on February last year, 2022. So I'll turn it to the participant. If you have questions, we already said you can use the chat box. Otherwise, I can allow you, my colleague, Dr. Philip is there. If you can use the reaction icon, if you click on the reaction icon, you will see some icon there. Just click on the one, raise up your hand, and we'll notice that your hand is raised up, and then we'll formally allow you to speak. All right. So there are a few questions that has been, let me see. Okay. I'm trying to look for, there are questions.
There's a hand up, sorry, if you can take the person while you go through the questions, yeah.
Okay, good. Lawal, please, Doc, can you unmute Lawal?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Hello, can you hear me, please?
Fantastically.
All right, yeah, thank you. I want to congratulate all the speakers for a good delivery. And it will go down well in history as a moment of citizen participation in our electoral history. However, I wouldn't know if there's a part of the book that look at issue of cyberbullying as part of the activities that our election has been experiencing in recent times. And the other part of it is the messianic approach to our election. I wouldn't know if that is so peculiar to the Abrahamic religion, because if you would go into history also, 2015 was more about the Buhari Messiah. We saw that on that plane in 2019, 2023 also, and then I want us to interrogate the interplay of that when it comes to electoral violence, because when there's a messianic approach that people have a particular expectation, then we then see the correlation it has with electoral violence or people being disappointed when election doesn't go in a certain way. So I'm happy deliberation. Those are my positions.
Thank you very much for bringing that to the fore. In fact, that can actually, I can pinpoint that kind of mosaic notion led to the post-election violence of 2011. Thank you for bringing that up. And also in this election, now we're already seeing a messiah. Hopefully, well, I don't know if any of the panelists want to take that, but I'd like to take more questions. All the panelists, you can speak to them at your time. If we can just take all the questions once, so we can respond one. Thank you very much. Whilst you're expecting the questions, I don't know if any other persons have raised up their hands. Let me drop. Okay, no hands. Any person? Okay. While looking for the questions as they come in, let me turn it to the moderator.
Sorry,
Yes.
Mr. Amori. I couldn't find the icon to raise my hand. My
the icon is okay. Please go ahead.
But if you don't mind my barging in, I can make it.
Fantastically. It's part of academic comradeship.
All right. So my first observation,
if you would like to introduce yourself, please.
Say that again.
If you could introduce yourself.
Oh, my name is Uyi Lawani. I'm not sure if it's showing on your screen or not.
Okay, please go ahead. Okay, Uyi Lawani, I can see it.
So the comment is first to appreciate the work of the panelists, or the work of the speakers, the two professors who are helping to lead the conversation this morning, and of course to thank Dr. Olayoku for putting this together. Now, I'm not sure how much research has been done with regard to the ability or the validity of the results of our elections. I know that because we are often excited about the notion of democracy or the popular participation of citizens in the choice of who their leaders are, we tend to gloss over this point. But I'll give you just two examples of elections results and how it connects to my enduring question to the credibility of our elections, and by extension, the credibility of the so-called elected leaders. In 2015, the candidate that won the presidential elections in Rivers State had over 1 million votes. Over 1 million. In that same year, the candidate that won the elections in Delta State also had, Delta State and Abia State had in excess of 1 million votes. Now, in 2019, the next election cycle, the votes received by the candidates, there was the same party. The candidates of this same winning party in those three states, in Rivers, fell below 400,000. In Abia, fell below 300,000. And in Delta, fell below 500,000. So I'm asking, if we're saying that, and in the overall total number of votes cast in the elections in 2019 were higher than the votes cast in 2015. So the question then becomes, how have we buried our head on that? How do you hide behind one finger and say that the elections we have had so far, to the extent we are even actually having an academic discussion on these elections? I mean, you don't need to be told that those results were written. Nobody cast votes. There were no 1 million. Even the reality is the votes were tallied and agreed on by whoever the agents were at those collation centers. And then the vote count cannot drop by 600,000 votes or 800,000 in one case in Abia for the candidate who won. So I just feel it just ticks me off that we are even having to do an academic exercise on elections that we glaringly, everybody can see, where by sham, the results are written. not until 2015 did we have a semblance of something close to credible. And I just gave an example. In that election, the winner of the election in Rivers, Delta, Abia had more than 1 million votes. And this dropped drastically in 2019. So please, if the researchers and the academicians can explain how we have sort of accepted that these results are valid and how we are not interrogating or doing something to find out how this tallied votes just dropped so significantly with the examples that, and you can say the same for other states. I just picked on those three to make a quick example. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. But there's also been an argument about the introduction of tech. Dr. Fernando brought in, for the first time in our electoral landscape, the introduction of the smart card reader, the first time a digital tool was used for accreditation. Before now, you can bring results from any location. And if you also remember 2007 elections, vote was still going on when results was announced. But somehow we have moved. But I'm not answering questions for the researchers. They will respond. There's a question. I'll take this. It said, this is for all the panelists. Do you think technology, the social media on the one hand, and the deployment of beavers on the other will be a determining factor regarding the outcome of this election? And of course, we'll come back to you. Okay, Prof. Chendu, please hold on. We'll come back to you. Okay, no, I think Prof can just go ahead now, make your comment. Then if there are no further questions, we can then, I see two people's hands are raised up. Okay, so let me take Professor Uchendu. Please go ahead with your comment.
Okay, I want to thank everybody for taking the time to join us. I've enjoyed listening to my colleagues, and I've enjoyed the comments by the sides and also the ones posted on the chat. I will not ask a question and I will not proffer answers, but I want to say this to Uyi. Uyi, this project was widely advertised and everybody was asked to chip in. It was the underwhelming feeling on the last two elections that actually prompted this examination. When we have opportunities like this, I believe that everybody that has something to say should bring it on board to help us package a more holistic perspective. I want to say that there is a plan that we should pursue this examination a second time. Let's consider what has improved since 2019. And we'll be looking at Nigeria and the 2023 election. So this is a good opportunity for both the contributors and all others to chip in their voices. Please, I will want to read your piece on this election voting strengths and dropping and going high and all whatnot. It's going to help us tremendously because we're trying to shape a country and we need to provide steps to what we want to have in our country. I believe we can get it right, but we all have to bring our efforts to the table so that we get to the destination that we will be very comfortable to sell to the international community. These are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. So I will take Thompson, I see you. You can go ahead. Yes, you can go ahead, Thompson. Oh, sorry, I mute you again. You can unmute if you can. Okay, yes, go ahead. Yes. If you can keep it short, it will be really appreciated. Thompson, go ahead. You got the floor now. Next will be Chukwuemeka. Please plan.
No, we can't hear. No, we can't hear Thompson. If he can work on his mic.
Okay.
We can't hear him actually.
Okay, yes. So Thompson, you hold on a bit. Okay, Chukwuemeka, please, can you go ahead? Oh, wow. I think the internet is bad. Okay.
I'm here. If you want me to go ahead.
Please go ahead, please.
Okay. Right. Good afternoon, everyone. And it's been an interesting afternoon. I had some points, noted down, not particularly as questions, but as comments and ideas that I want to raise. But Uyi's comments, I think, prompts me to want to bring up those points now. And I think my own answer to the issue that Uyi raised about how we are able to engage with an election or elections that are mad in so many ways. My own answer to that, I believe, would be in citizenship. How can we begin to think of raising a citizenship that is conscious, that is aware, that is informed, and that will better engage politicians? Patrick raised an issue when he was talking about their chapter. He said that politicians have not learned anything. And I beg to differ from his position. Politicians are not looking to learn any lessons that will be in our own interests. The only lessons politicians want to learn are lessons that would help them to further keep the people impoverished, lessons that will help them to perpetuate themselves in power. And the only way to challenge that position is a citizen or a citizenship that is engaged, a citizenship that is informed. If you take this election, for instance, and try to juxtapose it with past elections, you will notice a marked difference from what it used to be. We've not seen people eating corn. We've not seen the president's wife frying akara by the roadside, because the citizens are better engaged this time, because people are asking more intelligent questions, because people are not ready this time around to be carried away with those dramas. So I think we should be asking ourselves that question, and to begin to profile that solution and interrogate that. The AHRDC is putting up a conference next year on this very theme, citizenships. How do we begin to raise citizens that will take charge of their country? Citizens that will, strike a deal, raise an agenda for their country, and push towards meeting that agenda. Secondly, I want to say that I am troubled by what seems to be a continuously growing overreach of politics, regulations, and press freedom, and by extension, freedom of speech. If you followed the news recently, you will see a lot of, I can't remember right now, this government agency that regulates the media houses, but you see a lot of sanctions. Yeah, a lot of sanctions on the media houses simply for doing their work. And this strikes because citizens keep quiet. You see journalists trying to gag their guests on their different programs just because they don't want to be penalized by the NBC. So these things, I think, come together in this one word. How do we begin to hold INEC responsible? To me, INEC has become too powerful. How do we decentralize elections management in this country? And in decentralizing them, how do we ensure that the umpires that will rise up in states do not become as powerful as INEC, number one, and that they are not hijacked by politicians, number two, especially the state governors? How do we do these things? Please, I don't think this exercise is out of place. But what I think is that for the points we are trying to raise to gain traction, we have to have a citizenship that is informed, that can push this forward. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, because I think I would like to gradually draw this conversation to a close. I'm happy there's no hands raised. So I will turn it now to all the panelists. I think, Professor Egbe, you want to start in any particular order, but I mean, I just don't want to, I know protocol exists in the academic world, but I don't know if you would like to jump in, Professor Egbe, please.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody, once more. I think I would like to be part of the project on citizenship. I think I've seen it on my email, and I look forward to participating in that conference. But then, while I support the conference on citizenship, one thing I have to say is that one lacuna has been there. And what is that? Foreign observers have been part of the problem. The elections that we know that are not credible in most of the time, foreign observers, external observers give credit to these elections. There is one aspect that I think I would like to interrogate in the conference that should come up. Moving on from that, the messianic approach or kind of idea that Dr. Lawal raised is correct. Expectedly, if the electorate did not see their supposed person to win the election, there is usually been a problem. Like in 2011, it happened where even some of my students were killed somewhere in the north as a result of post-election violence. And I want to say that the issue of the credibility of results, while it's an area that I think that has brought kind of need to look into it, it's not peculiar to those states that the caller mentioned, because election results from that of 2015 and that of 2019 has never been stable or kind of a similar trend in all states in Nigeria. There has been dramatic, though those states he mentioned may be of significant interest to him, but it's a trend that runs across several states in Nigeria. And I believe that the recently introduced electronic tools, at least, we definitely work for better results in the 2023 general elections. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Dr. Farren, would you want to jump in and respond to any area of interest?
Okay, thank you very much. I thank all the contributors, the participants who have made comments, and thank my fellow panelists for their comments thus far, their insights. Now, what I would like to say is the question on technology being able to improve the electoral process. If I'm right, I think that's what the question says.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Okay. I'm asking, is that what the question says? I don't have a graph of the question, but I know it says something on technology, the impact of technology on social media on the 2023 elections or so.
Yes, please go ahead. Yes.
Okay, yeah. So, well, the only thing I would say about that is to the effect that, yes, technology, we know is made to make our work easier and more efficient. But, well, I don't want to sound like very pessimistic about Nigerians, about us Nigerians, but we have a way with turning good things to bad, but ideally and generally, I think that technology has its place in ensuring that elections be more credible in the come 2023 general elections, because I think that some of the excesses can be checked. For instance, the issues of overvoting, issue of over-registration, overvoting can be checked with the use of technology. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Prof. All right, I will come back. Sorry, I mean, so said we'll come back. Dr. Patrick, if you'd like to speak to any of the areas. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, very quickly. Thank you very much. And I also want to thank those who have joined us on this discussion so far, and the questions and points and ideas they have raised. So very quickly to the issue of cyberbullying, a mosaic approach to our elections in Nigeria. I think it's becoming a norm, particularly from 2015, when we saw President Muhammad Buhari becoming the winner of that particular election. And in very recent time, we've also had very similar things with a particular party, Labour Party right now. So it is not really strange when it comes to politics in Africa generally, but I think there are ways we can actually regulate these things, particularly in the aspect of cyberbullying. I think there are ways they could be, they could be addressed, they could be regulated based on certain laws or modalities that can be set up to ensure that such thing does not really get out of hand. Then on the issue of validity of results, well, I think generally the system is improving because we can't really say for sure that the 27 election, like you mentioned earlier, is the same thing with what we had in very previous, very recent times, and also what we may likely have in 2023. As the day goes by, the umpire and other persons involved are looking out for ways on how elections or probably electoral processes could be improved. With the BVAP and other things that are being put in place, I think we can likely see improvement in terms of validity of results. And that links me to the question of technology, if it will be a determining factor. Sure, technology, of course, is almost taking, in every aspect of our life, the IoT, Internet of Things. With technology, I think we've seen very recently how people have been enlightened, people have been educated, even online, to go register for their, their BVN and the rest of them. So we cannot say that a part of technology and the card readers and every other thing. I think generally technology will also have a very great impact on the election. Then, Dr. Agbo, thank you very much for pointing us in that direction, informed citizenship, and a sort of decentralization of INEC body. And like you raised some concerns, I think I also had that in mind when you mentioned decentralization of INEC. We can relate this to the issue of community policing or state policing rather, where some governors are actually agitating for state policing. Of course, you and I will agree with me that some of these things could actually be hijacked, and that is basically our fear. But I think we can find a way around it to have INEC decentralized so that it doesn't have so much power as we have seen in very recent times. I think that's what I would like to say so far. Thank you very much. I really appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And if you check your time, it's just almost on top of the hour that was proposed for this session, even though we started a bit 10 minutes behind schedule. I don't intend to take more than a minute. I want to turn it back to the organizers, but just to say that one, the overbearingness, if there's a word like that, of state governors is what is a challenge about decentralization of the electoral management body. Elections conducted by state offices of state election offices are marked by all manner of irregularities. The party in powers at the state level ensure that only their candidate wins the election. So it's a barrier. And that's one of the barriers I see with federalism or devolution of power in the Nigerian context. Technology does have a huge role to improve our credibility and integrity of our poll. I believe the 2023 elections will come out to be a better one. I'd like to thank my panelists, particularly the chief panelist, if I'm permitted to use that word, but Dr. Egbe, thank you very much. We appreciate you, and for the focus, hoping that, and also accepted to join the conference on citizenship. And I will propose that everyone should join the conference on citizenship. And Dr. Ferrer, thank you very much. I appreciate your area, the focus on the electoral umpire. And I want to humbly propose that you focus on the 2023 election so that we can interrogate 2019 INEC and 2023 INEC. So show some improvement or departure, as it were. Dr. Patrick, thank you for your views. They are well accepted. It's an academic piece. And thank you very much. Thank you. Dr. Philip, I'd like to hand it over to you as you do the needful. Thank you very much. I appreciate everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, my brother, Mr. Igbe, for the very, very expert moderation. Yeah, I mean, this is not my turn. I'm just using an executive privilege. I'm supposed to turn it over to Dr. Agbo because they are supposed to be the one to round it up. But let me just say something about technology. Yeah, we're always enthusiastic about the function of technology. But if there's no digital infrastructure in place to maintain the technology or to make it effective, then we may just be on a wild goose chase in terms of trying to, derive whatever impact technology is supposed to have on the elections. And that's why it's going to be subject to manipulation. Because once you don't have the digital infrastructure necessary to use this technology, then it's always going to be undermined. And you always have to go analog in some spaces when it comes to its use. So thank you very much, pioneers. I'll hand over to Dr. Agbo to help us conclude this session. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. Thank you, everyone, for finding the time to be here this afternoon and for your very brilliant contributions. I want to thank Philip in a very special way and by extension, the West African Transitional Justice Center. Thank you so much for this partnership. I believe that this is only the first step in more partnerships between the AHRDC and your center to come. Thank you, the panelists, and thank you all participants for being here. The conference that I referred to is on citizenships, and the full, the detailed call for papers will be out before the end of the month. What we have now is an abridged flyer going around. We did that so that people will begin to expect something to come, but before the end of the month, we'll have a detailed call for papers coming out. Please send in your papers. We'll have until October the 31st to send it in. And we're looking forward to a robust international conference come February next year. We're also using that conference to honor a distinguished academic that you will see when this poster comes out. Once again, I want to thank you. I want to thank Dr. Egbe and Professor Uchendo, who put this book together. Thank you, and please remember to send in your abstracts to Professor Uchendo and Dr. Egbe if you want to join the conversation on the 2023 elections starting in less than 48 hours. Thank you once again for finding the time to be here. We are very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Dr. Agbo. Thank you, everyone. Just to also use this privilege to also announce that our next discrete personality lecture will hold in April. Of course, with us is Professor Francois Ogochukwu, who is going to be giving the lecture, of course, to be also moderated by Professor Uchendu. So please keep a date with us in April as we serve you the best of the best regarding what's happening in the East. So thank you very much. All the best with voting. Keep safe and vote for your conscience if you can trust your conscience enough. And
no, I want to say that you don't trust people's consciences now. And we don't know what vote wisely is. Vote people.
Okay, vote for whoever I think is the best candidate. And hopefully, we'll come out of
that. Is the Messianic angle coming in.
That's the Messianic angle.
Not Mama, Papa, Pikin.
Vote Labour.
Except if you want to continue to buy your own currency.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right, everyone. I think we still have some time to campaign anyway. But wherever it is, we hope that the country comes out the best for it, and we hope that we'll move steps forward, be beyond where we're at the moment. All right, so thank you, everyone, and all the very best with the rest of the day.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, so bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.